Hi, I am Patrick. That's Lloyd, Steven, and Tiffany. Together we're Just Got Played, and tonight we're doing something very spooky. It's getting close to Halloween at the time of the recording of this, and we're going to talk about some spooky horror-themed games. Join us for Just Got Played.
Just Got Played Halloween Spectacular. 8 great spooky games.
All right, so just to start off, if you don't mind, and let's start with you, Steven. What did you put into this to select your game? Is it what do you consider a spooky game?
Yeah, so for me, it either had to have some sort of tension in the game with actions that were going on, or it just had to have something that, thematically matches up with things people consider spooky. So, zombies or ghosts or something like that. So, it either had to, evoke that weird feeling or, thematically through the art or presentation of the game in some way, just needed to fit the bill. So I wasn't particularly picky about trying to combine those two things, but I came up with a list that was pretty good.
Well, it was okay. Tiffany, how did you feel about your choices? Why did they drive you?
I picked mine because of theme almost exclusively. Like there are, in my games that I picked, there are tense moments and, things that make you go, but really I went heavy handed with the theme and the games that while you're playing, you realize like, wait a second, I'm alone in the dark room and I've got a flashlight but no batteries and a baseball bat. Like this would be a perfect movie. I think I've seen this movie before. That was my criteria for what I picked.
I agree. Mine was strictly on theme. In fact, it's so much theme I was almost embarrassed about it. Lloyd, why did you pick yours?
So I narrowed mine down to whatever had a horror IP. So if you look over here, Arkham, this is like, spooky Harry Potter, Alien, zombies up there. I have a couple games that I haven't played that I think would fit the tense aspect of it, like Nyctophobia, which is, 4 or however many players aren't the bad guy, have glasses on, but I've never got it to the table because I got it right before COVID, and then touching people, probably not the best idea in the middle of a pandemic. So it's never made it to the table.
Legally touching people has never been a good idea for me. There's always been some kind of issue with it.
You do have that restraining order.
Yeah. So, Lloyd, let's kick it off to you with your number one pick.
So my number one pick was Betrayal, a classic. And, Betrayal has multiple versions. I have the old version before they re-released it. So that's got like 8 billion tokens in it. But then there's Betrayal Legacy, which I also have. And then there's like a Scooby-Doo version of it. So it's safe for the kids. And then there's also a Dungeons and Dragons themed one, Baldur's Gate, I think. And this is kind of it starts off as a co-op. Everyone's investigating a spooky house and walking into rooms that have bloody footprints and, pit traps and all this stuff. And you're trying to figure out what's going on. You go in with no idea of what's happening. It's basically a haunted house and you don't know what's haunting it. It's, any cheesy B movie setup with a haunted house. And then partway through the game, the haunt reveals itself. And it's usually like a one versus all at that point, but there's occasionally where there's a co-op version and it's everybody versus the game. But at that point, the game kind of changes up. You're not exploring as much. You're trying to find what the bad guy, what will defeat them. And the bad guy is trying to either kill all the players or stop them from doing something. And at that point, it becomes, some are better than others. Some of the scenarios, and just in the base game, I think there's 50 scenarios, and there's an expansion that adds like another 20 or 30. And then Betrayal Legacy has like another book of 30 or 40. So it's got a lot of replay value in the sense that you probably won't get something else out of it. But that's my number one, I think, like Halloween, spooky, horror themed game that I think of right away, just because you don't know. There's that tension of what's going to happen. Who's going to be the bad guy? Even when you reveal the hunt, you still don't know who's the bad guy right away. So that's always fun in a tense moment.
So 5 of us submitted lists to build this, and 3 people had that game on their list. So I didn't have it on my list, and Cory, who cannot join us for the filming, did not have it on its list. But all 3 of you surrounding me here did have this game on their list.
It's such a great game. And like you said, Lloyd, that when you're trying to, the first part of the game, you're just trying to explore and get through and get ready. And then when the haunt is revealed, you still don't know if you have a traitor. And so that building anticipation of what's really going on here and what do I really need to be ready for is a great suspense builder, and it makes the game a lot of fun and a perfect game to play if you want a spooky evening.
I'm down with that. And the fact that it's got so many different scenarios by the time you play through, because I have Widows, I have all of them. I don't have the Scooby-Doo one or the Baldur's Gate, but I've got all the expansions and the legacies. But there's so much to do by the time you get to the end. If you started over, you wouldn't remember, because it's going to be 3 or 4 years since you played the game last. So I love that aspect about it. In my opinion, though, its weakness is some of those scenarios are a little sandboxy. Like you don't really know what you're doing, especially some of them when you're the possessed person. It's a little touch and go. You're like, yeah, crap, I'm not sure exactly how this works. But other than the rules being a little teeny bit sandboxy, I think that's a great choice. That's a really good game. Nice job, Lloyd.
I think,
and Legacy, the Legacy one kind of addresses that aspect, because at least then it's weaving a narrative, and your choices depend on how you're going to build out your house and how your story is going to end up, and depending on who wins or who loses. But there is a narrative forming there, so you have this cohesive story, even though they're all separate. And the very first, I don't want to give anything away, but that very first haunt in Betrayal Legacy, the very first storyline mission scenario, the twist in there is I didn't see it coming. It's pretty funny, and it's really good. And then it makes you think like, wow, that really would have been a good movie, because at the end it's like, wow, I can't believe you people did that.
Well, the number one reason this game did not end up on my list is I have not played it, but you all are selling me on it, right? Like, I'm ready to play it. Come on over. I might even change out of my unicorn outfit.
No, don't change.
Don't do that.
All right. So let's keep rolling with personal number ones. And in this case, Patrick, your number one was also a crossover. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Mansions of Madness?
Yeah, I'm picking it up.
Just a beast.
Mansions, yeah, it is. And I've got all the expansions for this too. So Mansions of Madness, absolutely fantastic game. Thematically, you can use it in the second edition specifically. You use an app, and there's eerie music playing, and there's really good graphics. The imagery and the tiles, all the artwork in this game are really good and really dark feeling. The thing that I probably need to mention is it's a great game. It's very thematic, but it's a little bit more dungeon crawly than I would normally think for a horror themed game. In fact, it's very similar mechanically to Imperial Assault, which is not a horror game. It's more of a combat game. But those aspects are really interesting in this game. There's lots of really cool stuff. There's several adventures in the base game. You will need to expand on that because there's not a lot. Now, in the first edition, Tiffany, you had the first edition too, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And then I got upgraded to the second.
Yeah. In the first edition, in the original box, I think there's 12 or 15 scenarios. I think there's only 4 or 5 in the second edition without all the expansions on it. But Mansion Madness is a great game. If anybody's not played it, I highly, highly recommend it.
It is so good. I agree with everything you said. And I have to say, I think the fact that it is so dungeon crawly, I think that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. Because they take, I think, what I imagine to be a fun way to adventure and explore, and they put it in this dark theme, which I've always been a fan of dark themes. And then when you're playing second edition, and you've got the sound effects coming in from the iPad, and like, it's just so good. It's so good. And it takes some time. I think the last time I played, I don't remember, like, they gave warnings. I signed up at a dice tower, and they gave warnings. They're like, this is going to be a long game. And I'm like, I'm in for it. I'm good for it. But it's just so much fun. And if you're ready to commit the time that it takes to sort out the minis and stuff, then you're going to have a great time.
Well, it's also got a dice chucking aspect to it. You're a dice chucker.
I am. Yes. It checks all my boxes.
Yeah, and talk about time commitment. I believe at one Dice Tower Con, I saw you play Twilight Imperium.
Yes. I'm a glutton for punishment at Dice Tower.
That, however, is not a horror game or spooky game.
No,
That did not make our
list. That was a horrible experience.
Oh, I love that game.
That's a different list.
The horrible experience list?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. All right. So it is time for my number one, which is Not Alone. So Not Alone thematically fits as a spooky game, because what's happened is there's a team of scientists on a spaceship, and they're out looking for habitable planets, and they've crash landed on a planet, and they're trying to, summon a rescue craft to come get them. But while they're there is a creature hunting them. So it's a 1 versus mini game. So one person plays the creature, and all the other scientists they're actually called the hunted in the game, right? And it has so thematically already you've got this sort of spooky theme, right? Like, when is this creature going to get me? Where is it going to come from? And that's what you're trying to not only accomplish things to help speed up the rescue craft coming back to get you as one of the hunted, but you're also trying to hide from the creature. Every round, it starts off, there are 5 locations, I think it is, that you can go to as one of the hunted, and the creature is going to go to one of those locations too. And if they catch you, they will break your will over time. And if they break your will enough times, people have to give up, and then eventually that's how the creature wins the game. But if everybody else can sort of stay safe long enough and summon the spacecraft and sort of wait out the creature, that's how they win the game. And so, in addition to being, a spooky theme and an interesting gameplay, this sort of, like hide from the creature, hide and seek type thing going on. It's also interesting because the decision space opens up as the game goes on, because the hunted can get new cards into their hand, which make new locations available. And so the game sort of evolves over play. And it's not a particularly long game either. I mean, you can sit down and you can play it multiple times at a game night session, which is good, because I think giving a lot of different people the opportunity to play the creature is good. And I think actually the creature is probably the easier position to play, which is weird, because usually in a 1 versus mini, the 1 is the harder thing. To play. You want the experienced player playing that, but in this game, it's not like that. Anybody can play the creature because the mechanisms are so sort of straightforward. So anyway, I crossed over with Cory on Not Alone. So that's, not only is it my number one, but it is also a crossover. And have you all played it?
I have not.
I played it once.
I haven't played
sold, though. Bring it next time.
Yeah, I will bring it. I mean, it is fat. Let me see. Does the box say? It says 2 to 7 players, so I like that already. It says 30 to 45 minutes. Lately with the whole pandemic thing, maybe the large groups isn't my thing. But before that, my game night was consistently 6, 7, 8 more players. So I always wanted to have games that supported more players. So I like that about it. And so I think that would be good for a Halloween party too, because it's quick and supports a lot of people.
That's a great point.
So now to wrap up all of the number ones from everybody, Tiffany, do you have it to show?
I don't, because you guys forgot to remind me, and I didn't prep it.
It's also like
Lloyd
big and heavy.
Enter it here.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was the cover of A Touch of Evil. Easily the best spooky game in the world. It's the early 19th century, and you found yourself in a little town, Shadowbrook, and it's apparently plagued by evil that you have to figure out what's going on. So you can choose to play cooperatively, where everyone works together and you get like a horror monster at the end, or you can play competitively, where everybody's out to save the town themselves, and it's a little bit easier to defeat the monster that way because you're not all the heroes banded together. But you have to work your way through the town to uncover the secrets and the tools that you're going to need in order to defeat this evil monstrosity. And there's, I think, like 4 or 6 different evil scenarios that you can play in the base game, and then they have like a ton of expansions, and then each character has their own strength, and this is where I fell in love with the game personally. I played this when I was early in the hobby, and I picked my character, and she was a teacher, and I was a teacher. That was my first career, was a classroom teacher. So, and this particular teacher gets stronger the more books she has. So I instantly had a mission. I was like, all right, I'm going to go find me some books, So I'm like going all around the town, and I'm searching everywhere, and I'm finding my books to become this powerful, lord over all the evil. And it was going to be great. And I've played this game so many times, and I've lost more than I've won, but it's so much fun just diving into the story and playing around with the silly characters and just kind of having fun with it. They have like the all bronze person who's going to save the day by, I'm sure that character was a lot of fun too. And like they just have all the different characters had a different slant, and it kind of gave you a direction to go in to start, I thought, and kind of helped you feel out what you were going to do. Like mine, they directed me towards the place to get the books. You could get books other places, but really if you want to get most books, go here. So but it's just a silly game, but the map on the board is just so old and rustic looking, and I love the idea of being in the early 19th century, and it's just very silly and fun. I don't know, have you guys played? I'm happy to host a game night.
I have. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
In fact, I have it here somewhere. But you know what kind of threw me a little bit on that one was the art, not the map, but the rest of the artwork for the game is a little
so cheesy.
That's that publisher's style, right? So
yeah, it is.
B movie costume props and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's definitely hits it on the nose for being a cheesy B-movie game. It qualified, I think.
It's good, though. I really enjoy it.
It's a lot of fun.
All right. So that was all of our number ones. Now let's talk about, 4 more games that were crossovers from our lists. So, Patrick, why don't you tell us a little bit about a game that I think came out of Central Florida, Burke's Gambit.
Burke's Gambit, yeah. This is a fantastic game. Not anytime, but a lot of the times when we do these, if I can work Burke's Gambit, and I will, because I love this game. Plays a lot of people. There's a little luck involved if you're a staunch I hate luck guy, so that may not be your ticket. But the theme of this is that we're all on a spaceship, and some of us are good guys, and some of us are company men or asset acquisition
ass agents or something. I don't remember.
And we get infected by an alien. One of us has been infected. We know that for sure, but we don't know who. So you've got to go through and take random dice out. It's a dice chucker, Tiffany, so you would love it. Take random dice out of a bag and throw them, and it might let you search somebody. It might let you take somebody down to the scanner. Might let you see somebody's affiliation. So it's very replayable. It's good for a lot of people, and it's pretty much alien themed, right? Like this is the movie Aliens, not Alien. And that's why I picked it for horror, because Aliens was kind of scary. It was tense, and there's some tense moments in this too.
Yeah, and that's where the name came from, right? Burke. Burke was trying to get an alien back to the planet, infecting.
And one last thing, I think it is out of print, so I'm sure a lot of people watching this are going to be super ticked off. But I know at one point they had plans on doing a second edition of this, which is just going to add some expansions. But unfortunately, Rob Yates, the gentleman in Central Florida who designed this game, passed away. So I think that may have either been slowed down or stopped. But Wiz Kids is the publisher, and if you can get your hands on a copy of this, that's not $90, which is what it is right now on eBay.
Ooh, wow!
Yeah, it was $12 game, $90 on eBay.
Wow, gotta love the secondhand market. You mentioned that people don't know who the infected is. I think it's interesting in the game that you don't even know if you're the infected.
Yeah.
So that's always interesting. So this game, so this was on my list as well, right? I crossed over with you on this, but I think it's pretty interesting. I have had some plays of it that were not great because the dice, they can end really fast where the ship gets to the destination and nobody really knows anything yet, and so it's just sort of a crapshoot for the people who are trying to get rid of the infected, and that I've had some people that's their first play and they're sort of turned off by the game, but it's so fast, right? You should just play it multiple times. You're gonna, normally I say, like, if you play a game and you don't have fun, why play it again, right? But if it's a short game like this one, try it again. You'll find the fun in this one. Like it's a solid game.
And I feel like with that statement, I feel like a lot of games you have to play 2 or 3 times to really get yourself immersed in the game to figure out how it all works. That's not the case with this. The case that you're mentioning is this could misfire.
Yeah.
One time, and I think I've only had it misfire once, and I've got to play it 100 times. But this is a game where it's easy to play. Everybody knows how to play it when you sit down and you just go and have a good time. I enjoy it. Anybody else? I'm so shocked that Lloyd did not.
Yeah. It was on my. There's so many like horror themed or spooky themed games that it just. To me, that falls more into the party category, so it didn't fit kind of the tension and the horror theme. So it's to me, it's really fun. It's fast and it's fun, and yeah, it's based on aliens, so it is a horror kind of themed IP. But I don't know, there's not much. Fun. Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm not scared playing it or. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's a great game. I own it. Our group, anytime we get together, it's typically a go-to game while we're waiting for other people to show up, and we play 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds sometimes. But yeah, occasionally there is the weird little, because I think all the way it sets up is the engines are one less than the amount of players. So the games have ended before like the final players actually gotten a turn just because of 5 bad dice rolls in a row that hit the engine. So it's happened. It's rare, but it usually ends up being a ton of fun.
Yeah. So Lloyd, so you're saying maybe thematically that didn't really fit for you because it just felt like, it wasn't necessarily horror or spooky in that regards. But why don't you tell us a little bit about a game that has that spookiness all the way through, which was a crossover, and that was Dead of Winter.
Dead of Winter. So this is actually the second version, which has like a bunch of expansions in it, the Long Night. But basically, Dead of Winter it's basically Walking Dead in a winter wasteland, right? It's a post-apocalyptic game. There's a colony. There's a bunch of buildings around, and the game revolves around the players taking on a number of survivors. So you're not going to be playing one character. You're going to have multiple characters that you're going to be playing. And you'll start with a handful based on how many people are in it, but you can get more throughout the game. And the whole thing is there's a main objective, and it's going to end after a certain amount of rounds. The game can be played co-op or with like a trader mechanic. So everyone's going to get a secret mission that they're trying to accomplish, such as, have a certain amount of weapons or have food or whatever. And all these objectives, even though we're all in the same team, are kind of hurting the group as a whole. But it's got this weird mechanic where everyone on the non-betrayer team, if you play with a betrayer, can win the game as a team, but they can lose the game individually because they didn't complete their objective. So the objectives are there to kind of hide who the betrayer is, because everyone's like hiding stuff. So you never know who's actually out to hurt the colony as a whole and who's just trying to be a greedy jerk and hoard all the food. So the game basically revolves around there's zombies. There's zombies coming every turn. There's zombies.
There's zombies.
Zombies everywhere. And it's got this little dice mechanic that anytime you go from like a place to another place, location to location, you have to roll this dice. And because it's like I said, a winter wasteland, you have to roll for exposure, as it's called, and you can get frostbitten, and that will slowly kill you through the game. You can also there's some bite marks on the die, so you can get attacked by a zombie while you're out. And then one of the cool things is if you kill a zombie, anytime you kill a zombie, you have to roll that die to see if the zombie like bit you. And if the zombie bit you, you're that's it, you're dead. But if you're at a location with other people, it's going to pass to the next person that's got a lower initiative, which is just a mechanic of the game. So it's going to pass to the next person, and the person's controller has a choice to make. Do they want to just let their person die and end the spread, or do they want to chance it and roll that die and try to beat the odds? So you can essentially wipe out an entire location or most of the colony because people don't want their characters to die. So it's got all these weird little mechanics of, searching for stuff and trying to find food and, keeping up the colony. But overall, it's The Walking Dead in the North Pole. That's the best way to explain it. You're at risk from everyone else possibly infecting you, and they're possibly being a betrayer. And the Long Night specifically adds other mechanics in, so you can have a raider group that someone can join. And there's also another expansion that like makes it straight competitive, I believe, with colony versus colony. I haven't played that one, so but yeah, that's Dead of Winter in a nutshell. Zombies, The Walking Dead, but instead of Atlanta, instead of the South, they're in the North in the middle of winter.
Yeah, somewhere with snow and such.
Yeah.
Tiffany, you crossed over with Lloyd on this one, right? So what do you think of the game?
I really enjoy it. I definitely think it has. I felt that anxious feeling while you're trying to get enough food to feed everyone, or you're going through the cards and you're like, wait a second, I put food in there and I'm pretty sure she put food in there, but how did we get so much crap in our food, in our food pile? And so trying to figure out just what's going on in the game is a lot of fun. And it kind of not being married to your characters and just letting them die off when they need to. It's an emotional ride, but a lot of fun. Now I'm going to say this, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. That's the game that introduced Crossroads events, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. I forgot to mention the Crossroads
event.
Yes.
Those.
Yeah.
Okay, like that. One of my favorite parts is like I make some random decision about something, and then all of a sudden, I've activated somebody's trap card, and now something else happens, and that's a lot of fun too. It's a little disappointing when I get to the end of a game and I look at my person and I'm like, why didn't you ever activate? And they're like, you never did the thing, and I'm like, man, I wanted to. So they have a lot of fun ways of getting different layers of tension built in, and I think it's really clever.
I think it's funny when, because there's a random chance that there's no traitor in the game, but everybody's still accusing each other of being traitors, and I find that amusing. Personally, I also found that this game plays better at lower player counts. It's a little sort of long with a lot of players. It can be a while before your turn comes around. But so if you haven't played it, my personal recommendation is to play it at least the first time at a lower player count.
I agree with that.
What are you thinking? 3 or 4?
I like 2, really. I mean, maybe 3, but my personal best experience playing it was actually a 2-player game. So yeah, just and I played.
I don't like to do anything with just one other person.
I don't play games a lot, just 2-player, which is interesting. So I've played this game, I think, at 4 and 5. So yeah, and maybe I don't know. I'd have to go check. But 2 stands out. I remember the game that I played it 2, and that was the most fun of all the player counts I played it at.
5's a bit much, but I think 3 or 4, just so you have, because if you're playing with 2, I mean, it's almost impossible to have a traitor. Like it.
I'm not sure you have a traitor at 2.
I don't think you can.
Remember. I don't think you.
Even if,
I don't know if
play that way. I don't know if the other one adds in that ability to have it. I know there is a bunch of different setups in the back with the different modules, so it might add it in. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the idea of having the traitor, I think, it's that social deduction aspect. There's a lot of different like Mod Podge things thrown into this to do it. I think at least 3, but yeah, once you get up into like 5 players, it's like 20 minutes before your turn comes back around.
Yeah.
So many zombies. So many zombies.
So Tiffany, there's another crossover here, and I was happy it wasn't personally on my list, but I was happy it made it in here anyway, because I feel this one really fits the spooky theme more than a lot of these others. And this is about a murder, and it is Mysterium.
Mysterium. So, thank you, Lloyd. So, in Mysterium, it's the 1920s, and you're a psychic and a group of psychics trying to divine how this person was murdered. Or maybe you get to be the ghost character, and you're the person that's trying to help the psychics determine what happened to you. But basically, at the beginning of the game, you're going to assign cards to these people without them knowing it. And you're going to have them, and you're going to be trying to walk them down a path silently by giving them cards that help them pick what you've already previously assigned to them. And so you get this hand, I think it's like 7 cards, and you have to, you've got maybe 4 people that are playing with you, and you've got to pass these cards out so that when they look at these pictures, that invokes some kind of something that gives them a vision. And so from that vision, they're able to come up with these details about this murder. And so each one of those psychics has to figure out what their scenario is. And then at the end of the game, you have to figure out amongst all of those scenarios, which one was the actual murder, so that they can hopefully avenge you or catch the person who did this. So you spin the ghost doesn't say a word the whole game. They just hand out cards, and it's just up to the psychics to talk amongst themselves and try to figure out what it is this ghost is trying to communicate with them. So it definitely does a good job of, you feel like you're communicating with the dead or something, because you're like, this doesn't make any sense. What in the world is going on? But there are a lot of laughs, but there's also a lot of mystery in Mysterium.
Yeah, I got this game early on when I think there was it like only a Ukrainian printing of it or something?
Yes.
It was called, or maybe I had the Polish printing or something. I don't know, it was called Tajemnice Domostwo or something, and I had like an English translation of the rules. But yeah, that's and there have been several games that sort of try to use that mechanism now, but that was pretty new, right? That first time I remember sort of seeing that when it came out.
That was another Dice Tower game for me. That was another Dice Tower game for me, and they only had it in the original non-English edition. And I remember, like, I was in my Google Keeps making notes. I was like taking pictures of everything. So I was like, I am getting this game when it's released here. I'm gonna have this game.
I've never played, but mechanically, it sounds from your description a little bit like Deception, Murder in Hong Kong.
It's similar.
Yes, but Deception came later. Yeah.
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 You might have taken a few ideas from that. I don't know.
Maybe. Lloyd, this was also on your list, correct?
Mysterium, yes. I think I was probably in the same boat as Tiffany, in that I saw it before the English printing was available, which is rare. I usually don't see games before they're coming over, but I was like, this game is, you don't need the English version. You just need the rules, because there's no text on anything in the game. It's just pictures. So there's really no text on anything. And those little dream cards are what kind of make or break the game, right? Like you have a hand of cards and you're going to give them, and they're so random. They're so surreal. Like, you know, a mouse wearing a top hat standing on a thimble in a field of, you know, worms. And you're like, whoa. The ghost is trying to convey something, but how does that relate to a person on the board? And it could be one little thing or a color or just a feeling or, you know, something that's in the background of the character card. And it's just, you never know, like, as the ghost, what they're trying to convey. And when you swap players and somebody else is the ghost, you're trying to play the same way. And now they're playing different because they're the ghost and they're interpreting those cards completely differently. And yeah, it's hilarious. It's one of the few games that I got my mom to play, and she got very upset at the ghost because she thought the ghost was like, didn't understand their role, that they were on our team. She thought they were playing against us. And she was like, she's not playing right. It was hilarious. I felt bad. I had to defend the ghost player because she couldn't talk.
It's hard as the ghost player too, because you got to keep that poker face, right? Because people start going, "Oh, look, there's yellow in this card, and there's yellow in this card," and you're like, "No, I played that because of this stuff, the nautical stuff in the card. Come on." You know? So
you don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, it's tough.
So you mentioned playing that with your mom, playing that with family. So I feel like this list needed a kids game, and so luckily Cory and I crossed over on one. So I have Geister Schatzsuchmeister, which I think literally would translate to Ghost Treasure Hunter, but this is published in English as Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters, and they made a later version of it called Ghostbusters Protect the Barrier, maybe something like that. This is actually was a 2014 Kinderspiel des Jahres nominee, which is the children's game of the year in Germany. Although I've heard people say that they recommend the Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters version over the Ghostbusters version because people say it's maybe higher quality components, I think. I don't know. Do your own research if it interests you. But this is a purely cooperative game, and the theme is there is a haunted mansion, a haunted house, and there's treasure in there. And so you've got to get in and get all the treasure in the mansion before the ghosts sort of overrun it. And, you know, it's interesting because it has roll and move. And a lot of people are turned off by roll and move, although I think it can play well in a kid's game. So there is an amount of luck here, but I like how it works in this game. You know, you roll a 6 and you get to move a lot, and it doesn't bring in a ghost. And there's definitely stuff to think about here. Do I want to go in a room to help somebody? Because when you go in a room and there are ghosts in the room, you can roll the die to see if you sort of dispel the ghost that's in the room. But if there's another player in there with you, you get to roll 2 dice. And if you don't clear the ghosts out of a room, they will eventually stack up and they become this. There's a different sculpt, like a mega ghost or something. I don't know what it's called, that goes in the room, and that requires 2 people to go take it out. So, you know, you want to get in there and you want to get the treasures, and then you want to pull the treasures out. You have to take them out one by one, so you have to take multiple trips to get all the treasures out. So, you know, that's what you want to be doing because that's how you win the game. But if you don't take care of the ghosts, they're going to just continuously start coming up in the mansion, in the rooms, and it's going to overrun and you're going to lose the game because once the certain number of those mega ghosts get put out on the board, you've lost the game. So it's a lot of fun. My kids love it. And, you know, they've asked to play it many times since I showed it to them. So that right there is, you know, the hallmark of why would I keep a kids game? You know, as long as my kids want to keep playing it, I'm going to keep it. And, you know, it's definitely, it is maybe more spoopy than spooky, to use Tiffany's word, because, you know, it is a kid's game and there's just playful little ghosts in there. So, but yeah, definitely it's on theme, and I think it's a really good kids game that I would recommend, even if you weren't looking for a spooky Halloween game to play. Have any of you all played it?
I have played it. I've recommended it to 2 friends. One for his young son. We actually had a second one eventually, but at the time he only had one, and he got it and he played it all the time with his kid, and then with the second kid. And then another friend I recommended it to because his wife didn't like long, heavy games, and he was like, "Oh, thanks for recommending it." She loved it, And then I actually gifted the Ghostbusters version to my nephews 2 years ago, and they played it a ton too. So yeah, it's actually pretty well received. I haven't got a single negative review. It's one of the few games that I've actually recommended to 3 distinct different people or given it to, and they've all enjoyed it with different age groups too. So,
oh, really?
Not just kids.
I don't think I would play this game except with kids, but I haven't tried it, to be honest. So
it's ironic that the pink unicorn says that.
I'm a very adult pink unicorn, thank you.
Yeah.
Very
Sorry.
mature for my unicornness.
Station.
All right.
Well, I think that about wraps it up, doesn't it?
Well, so there's one more thing I wanted to mention. So Cory couldn't be here to film the video with us, but he did still submit a list. I crossed over with him on Ghost Fightin' Treasure Hunters and Not Alone. But since he wasn't here, I wanted to just go ahead and mention what his number 1 was. So it's Tyrants of the Underdark. And I know Lloyd has played that. So Lloyd, can you just tell us real quickly about that game?
So Tyrants of the Underdark is a game set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. And I'm not a big Dungeons and Dragons fan, so I actually went to look it up earlier today to see what the Underdark was. And apparently it's like this horrible place under some city. And the further down you go, the worse it gets. So the game is a area control using deck builder mechanics to kind of place out your armies and do stuff. And the reason why it's in the horror category is because the 4 at least in the base game, the 4 groups that are in there are drow, and so you're playing a drow, a house of drow, which I guess are dark elves.
Yeah,
we're probably going to get killed on the Dungeon and Dragon stuff that I'm screwing up right here. But
you're not. You're perfect.
So you play as a house of drow, which are dark elves, and the 4 factions are dragons, more drow, demons, and elementals. So that's why it kind of fits into the horror category. It's in a scary part of Dungeons and Dragons, and all of the factions that are in there are scary, evil priests and demons and elemental monsters and these evil dark elves. So it's a board for area control, and the board kind of plays differently based on how many players. So in 2 players, you use the center of the board. For 3 players, it extends out to 1 extra section. For 4 players, you use the entire board. But then it's basically deck builders, and you're trying to get the most points. And you get points by controlling places and certain cards in your hands and promoting people up to your inner circle, which gives them new abilities and stuff. But yeah, that's why it's in this category of spooky themed games, because it's a spooky version of Dungeons and Dragons, which I'm not familiar with, but it sounded pretty cool. I remember playing the game, and I remember just off the mechanics. And the theme is definitely on point after reading about it.
All right. Well, so Patrick, there you go. That's 8 spooky games plus 1.
8 plus 9 spooky games. I want to thank everybody for watching. I'm Patrick, Tiffany, Steven, and Lloyd, giving you the scariest games on the market. Well, and some of them aren't on the market. That's my fault. Sorry.
Yeah, lame.
Thank you for joining us for Just Got Played.
Yay!
Have a
Like,
good night.
subscribe, comment, all those
Yeah,
things.
do what he said.
Even if it's bad.
Listen to the pink unicorn.
Listen to the pink unicorn.
Someone's done a lot of drugs.
Don't do
He's not even wearing a
drugs.
pink uniform outfit.
Don't do drugs while you watch our videos, or at least don't tell us if you do.
But everyone else does see Steven in a pink unicorn.
Look
You are not
really-
the only one.
Look really closely at my square.